And Corlett, you've represented Douglas Central since 2016. You're defending your seat. How would you assess your performance in the first 5 years?
I think I've certainly worked very hard, and I've tried my best to achieve the best for the people of not only Douglas Central but for the Isle of Man. I think we've passed some really important legislation. We've made some huge changes in departments. So much more to do. And that's why I'd like to come back and finish the things that I've got traction on.
Now, you're not maybe as high profile as some of the members in terms of, media presence, news stories, but of course a lot of work of an MHK goes on behind the scenes. Has that been very much your approach in the first 5 years? And do you think, in fact, you've been visible enough?
I think absolutely that has been my approach. I'm a doer more than a talker, I suppose. And I'm very good at listening. Whether I've been high profile or not, I probably, there's been some criticism that I haven't. I'm not good at that sort of thing. And actually, I do need to get over that in the next 5 years, because this is not about me. It's about what we're doing. And I clearly understand that, if I don't put out there what I am doing, people aren't going to know about it. So yes, I think I need to be more visible.
Many new members in the past have said just how surprised they are by how much there is to learn in terms of protocols, rules, etc. Now, you've been through that process. Will that enable you, do you think, to hit the ground running, so to speak, if re-elected this time around?
Absolutely. I think that is hugely important now. There's a stall at the beginning of the last administration. There are 12 new members. So much to learn. It is a huge learning curve. But this time, I just think, I'm ready to go. And I would have never said I would hit the ground running last time, because I appreciated I couldn't. But this time, actually, yes, I can.
Now, what have you not achieved so far that you would consider unfinished work from the last term, so to speak?
Okay, I think we've got huge amounts still to do in education, and huge amounts to do in health with the creation of Manx Care. It's a totally different setup in health now. We have put through some domestic abuse legislation, but there are no services or support underneath that. It's the same with sexual abuse. A lot of the social legislation just doesn't have the services and support that should lie beneath it, and that's a huge amount of work to do in that.
Now, in terms of policies, you've listed health, education, housing and climate change, all worthy topics, but not a lot can be done if the economy isn't strong. How do you think the next administration can get the economy back on track in the wake of the pandemic?
Okay. I mean, I think from a starting point, we're probably not as bad as we could be. Not as bad as some places, but obviously, driving the economy is absolutely vital, because without that, we can't provide the services, can't fund the services that we need. So I think, job creation, trying to bring new business here, really, we need to be very diverse in what we're looking at. I think, too, training and reskilling is absolutely imperative, especially as we head towards different ways of heating and with climate change. There's huge possibilities there for retraining and reskilling.
Now, several candidates have attacked government spending over the past 5 years. Where do you stand on this?
I think, actually, there is waste in government, and you can see it, and it's our job to try to stop that. But I think the main points at the moment, and certainly what I'm getting on the doorstep, is the overspends with Promenade, things like Richmond Hill, projects that just aren't finished. They're not only overspending, but because they overrun, they're impacting the shops and businesses around them. My feeling is that we need a project management unit that oversees these projects and keeps them online. I mean, we are about to have an explosion with Liverpool Ferry Terminal, without a doubt. And that's money that we could be putting into other services. And
There's been some big capital spending schemes that literally haven't gone to plan this time around, hasn't there?
Yeah. And it's project management. And I do think, it's not always the person's fault that's running projects. They're given projects that they're not always equipped to deal with. They don't have the experience, knowledge, and then we pull them to pieces when things fail. There's too much in government that goes on where projects and reports are being asked on the side of people's desks. So you end up with half a job or no job done at all because people don't have the time or the expertise sometimes to do it.
Now, your constituency is Central Douglas, or Douglas Central, I should say. What are your concerns, or what are the concerns of the people that you're talking to on the door heading into the next 5 years?
Okay. Mostly, actually, roads and pavements. And I think actually for all of us, what's most important is what's outside our front door in our immediate vicinity. So roads and pavements are a big issue. I think secondary school provision facilities are a big issue. We have Ballacameen's very overcrowded. St Ninian's is under capacity. There's a huge amount of work to do there. Speed limits. I've been working really hard on speed limits. I've been out knocking on doors over the last, it's been 2 years really with lockdowns and things. I've managed to get an amendment through Tynwald that is agreed that we should have 20 mile an hour speed limits in residential areas. I'm particularly keen to get them around the roads around schools. There's nothing in the roads around schools in Central Douglas that limit the speed of the traffic.
Now, you have 3 sons who've all passed through the education system. As you've mentioned, education is a key interest. What is wrong with the present system, do you believe? I mean, you mentioned infrastructure, but in the system itself, what would you like to see corrected?
Look, I don't think we have a bad education system. I think we have a good education system. I think it's been overshadowed in the last few years by the teachers' dispute, and I think now we're on the road to turning that around. I think the department are working far better with head teachers. I think they're very much understanding that teachers are the people that know how to do this. But I don't think we should be hugely critical of the system because actually we have a good system.
Nevertheless, we're a small island, with a wealthy island, with a lot of investment in education. In theory, we should be the best place in the British Isles, surely.
Yes, and that's what we strive to be. Education, the department itself has been restructured. I see some really good things happening there. I'm particularly concerned about those children that are on margins of education, that are either not accessing education at all or on restricted timetables, suspended. We really and there are really positive moves to address that at the moment, which should come to fruition in the near future.
Where do you put yourself on the political scale? Are you to the left or to the right?
I'd say I'm probably, do you know what? I cherry pick, to be fair. You know, I'm quite conservative with some things, but I'm absolutely passionate about social policy and social justice. So I think that's the bonus of being an independent, is you can actually pick. I wouldn't put myself on a scale. I'm me. This is what I think.
Were you drawn at any stage to any of the political groupings on the island before you decided to become an independent?
No, I like the independent structure. I like the fact that we have to cooperate, collaborate, discuss and decide.
Now, you entered national politics after cutting your teeth, so to speak, at Douglas as a Douglas Town councillor. Was that a useful stepping stone for you?
I think it was, actually. If only in the way that council meetings work, the etiquette, the learning when you can speak and when you can't. And actually, it did give me some confidence to move on to national politics.
Now, you've mentioned also that health is another area of concern to you. Do you support the recent structural changes there, and will they, in your view, improve service delivery?
Yes, I do support them. something had to happen. We could not go on as we were. We were simply firefighting at Nobles, saving money in all other divisions, so things were getting cut. The creation of Manx Care as an operational arm and the transformation programme, I do believe will work out, but we have to hold the line, and it's going to be a bumpy ride.
Affordable housing, the next topic we have here. That's on the lips, of course, of all candidates this time around, and of course often the case in previous elections also. But what action would you take to alleviate the problems?
Okay, I think this is something that actually we have failed to address in the last 5 years. And I regret that, actually, that we haven't managed to do something about it, because it's not only about affordable housing, it's about housing for us all. And first-time buyers, I mean, it's literally impossible at the moment. Firstly, the schemes don't fit. The caps on earnings are not at the right level, and the caps on purchasing a house are far too low. That is being addressed. I think we need to try to move forward with rent-to-buy schemes. In my opinion, the biggest hurdle to get over when you want to buy a house is getting the deposit together. So a rent-to-buy scheme actually helps, and with new developments, we should be putting in place policy that encourages developers to engage in rent-to-buy schemes.
Now, there is a concern there's been a widening of the gap between rich and poor on the Isle of Man in recent years. Obviously, a rampant housing market accentuates that problem. Do you think the island is becoming an increasingly unbalanced place in that respect?
I think the gap is widening. And things like affordable housing, they make that gap wider, because when people get into rental market, they're stuck in it, they're never going to get out, and they could actually have a mortgage for less than they're paying for rent. So, yes, I do think the gap is widening. And I think we need to find ways to pull it together.
Have you any ideas in mind?
I think, again, that comes back to opportunities for training, for reskilling, for giving people the opportunity to earn money, to earn more money, and to come off benefits. Once you get stuck in that cycle too, it's difficult to get out of without the opportunity of jobs. So increasing the jobs market is obviously a way to enhance people's standard of living.
Now, we're recording this. The weather is fantastic outside. The sun is shining. And let's turn now to climate change. Is government committed to real change, or are they just paying lip service to pressure from lobbyists, do you think? No,
I think they are committed to real change. I think they've showed that with climate change legislation and with the Professor Curran's committee on that. I think that we need to spend money, resource, where it's going to make the most impact for people, because we've got to bring people along with this. It's going to affect us all. It's going to cost us all money. And if we don't have people on side, it just isn't going to work. But
are the targets that government have put in place really achievable in the timescales they've given, do you think?
Well, I supported the 2050 rather than the 2035, because I think we do have to be realistic. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. There's issues with if we go to electric cars, how are we going to charge them? We don't have a driveway. I'd have to trail the flex over the garden, over the hedge, over the pavement to the car. So there's a lot of thought needs to go into how we're going to do it. The most emissions are from buildings, people's homes. So encouraging people to insulate will lessen their bills, which is an incentive to do something. But I think we have to understand that this is a financial cost to everybody on the island, and unless we do this right, people won't come along with it.
And of course, it's another situation where it's very different between rich and poor. The people who have lots of money can do it relatively easily.
Exactly.
Those on a very low income are going to find it more difficult.
And if you legislate for things and then you have to prosecute, you will be prosecuting the people on the lowest incomes that can't afford to do it, and therefore compounding the problem.
Who have you been impressed by in the last Parliament?
Ooh, that's a good question. To be honest, I think everybody that I've worked with has impressed me in one way or another. I don't really want to pick out anybody. It's a personality thing too, isn't it? So, no, I think everybody has their own talents and everyone's played their part.
Is there anybody in particular you'd like to see as the next Chief Minister then?
I can't answer that either. No, I mean, I hope I have the privilege to be able to have a vote for the new Chief Minister. I would absolutely have to see what their manifesto is, what their policies are, and who they would wish to work with before I would make a decision on that.
Assuming you were successful, would you, if you were offered, take up a ministerial post?
Yep, nothing's off the table as far as I'm concerned. Like I say, it would depend on who you were working with and what you were offered, to be fair.
Does the system work, do you think? Or do we have too many MHKs?
No, I think the system works. I don't think we have too many MHKs. After all, we're a small island, but we've got the same services, the same legislation, all of the same things to do that, say, the UK have. And we're managing with 24. My own experience is that I'm not sure how much more I could do. This is a very, very full-on job.
Looking at the COVID crisis now, do you believe the government has handled it well to date?
Yes, I do. I voted against the last two sets of regulations, and the only reason, well, there were several reasons for that. The first, in June, I felt we were just moving too quickly. And then in July, I felt Chief Minister said we were moving from a world of elimination to a world of mitigation. I don't feel there was quite enough mitigation. So all I did was register my dissent with a vote against. It wasn't going to make any difference, but I felt better for doing it.
Let's assume for the purposes of this interview that you serve another 5-year term and you're being spoken to again about the past 5 years. What would you like to think that the next administration will have achieved at that time?
What I would like to do is for the next administration to pick out the things that are actually we could task and finish in the next 5 years. Now, those are things like, for Douglas, a road maintenance scheme that actually brings the roads and pavements up to standards in the next 5 years, that we have a national housing policy and that we actually tackle the housing problem, not only housing but homeless, and nursing care funding. I think that's something we fundamentally missed out on this time. And it is that cradle to grave thing. We need accommodating all throughout our lives. So I would like to see some real traction on that. To be fair, there is so much to do.
And finally, why should the voters of Douglas Central put their name alongside, or put their cross alongside the name of Anne Corlett come the general election on the 23rd?
Okay. I work hard. I'm very committed. Integrity. Most of all, I care. I care about you. This is not about me. This is about us.